So in the world of K-pop, we have covered a lot of things, from my reactions to music videos to some of the artists' photography. But this one today, I'm already impressed, because when I was sent this link, I was just like, I saw the first photo and I thought, holy crap. But without further ado, let's get into it. I mean, look how beautiful that shot is. I mean, obviously, Yuqi is a very attractive girl. She's very attractive. She's very gorgeous. But I love we need to talk about this for a sec, because I love the detail about this. This looks like a painting, and this is how photography should be. You know, I love the fact that they have all the details, like in her hair, in the roses, in her vest, and even in her stomach. Like, you know, there's her belly button. I also love the fact that you can see the detail on the sword right there. Like, it's such a good shot. I love the aesthetic background to it, because it kind of, you know, makes her the focal point of this whole photograph, which is obviously the point. There's so much, you know, you can even see the minute details all the way down to like the buttons, the different wrinkles, like in the flowers. You can even see the detail of the lip shine of her lipstick on her lips. I mean, it's such a well done photograph. I think this is amazing. Like, I have no words besides amazing. Obviously, she's very attractive. She's very, very attractive. Let's go on to the next. I mean, look at this. Like, let's talk about this for a sec. You know, I love the fact that this is like an up close and personal shot. You can see that you can see the light in her eyes. You can see the minute details, like even down to the shine, the glimmer shine of her lipstick on her lips. You can see the detail of her teeth. You can see the detail of her hair, and the detail of like her ear. And there's just so much. I love this. There's so much about this that it just blows me away. This is something that I see this a lot. I don't see this a lot. I see a lot of, because this is something that I struggled with for the longest time, where my aperture wasn't the greatest. My aperture, my shutter speed, and just my overall settings were just not where they should be. Now, granted, the individual who took this shot, guaranteed, they've been doing photography for 20 plus years. But that's the great thing about photography. You know, I thought I knew there was. I didn't think. I remember when I took my first photography class up at Weber State University. I was excited, but I was also humbled at the same time, because, like, I mean, there were things I knew. I knew about aperture, I knew about shutter speed, I knew about, you know, the f-stops and everything, but I didn't know them in great detail. And I was humbled. I ate some humble pie for the first few weeks of the class, and it was a great class, and I would recommend anyone who wants to get into photography to go take a course, whether it be at a local university or a community college or wherever. But this right here blows me away. So let's talk about this. I love the detail of the earring. I love the detail of the various pins right here. I love the detail of her necklace and the heart pendant that's at the center of her necklace. You know, whoever took this shot just did such an amazing job. And I just barely noticed this. The sword is right there. I think that's such a cool shot. It's so impressive. It's like what this person says. She's stunning. She's stunning. Like, whoever ends up marrying her is going to be a very lucky individual. And that's such a cool shot. I like that a lot. You know, she's holding the rose and the rose stem by her teeth in her mouth. and it's just so well thought out. You know, you can see the detail in her hair, you can see the detail in the various fake flowers that are right up there. But again, going back to, you can see the detail in her earrings. And I just noticed that her earrings are 2 different earrings. That's a pretty creative thing for the photographer to do, because that's something you don't really see too often. But even if you were to look at the rose, you can even see the rose petals all the way down to the center. And rose petals are, if you can capture them just right, they're amazing. Like, I've taken some shots of flowers and of other things, of other plants that I did a really good job of. But when you go back to this, like, that's so cool. Like, I love that so much. There's so much about that I love. I love the detail in her vest. Again, you can see everything. So, you know, it's clear as day. You can see the detail in her strands of hair. And I love this one. This is cool. I like this a lot. Wow. Obviously, she's very attractive. From a guy's perspective, she's on. If you were to put her on the number scale, she would be a 20 out of 10. She's very gorgeous. I love the fact that, you know, she's leaning up against this pole, and you can see all the detail in the pole. But again, she's the focal point. She is the focal point. Everything else is kind of minute to her, because she's obviously the reason why people are looking at the photograph. But you can see the detail in her the flowers, even in these different attachments down here, even in the string that's right here that goes down by her leg. I mean, it's a very well done photograph. I love the detail, again, of the roses. And just, this is one thing I always try to tell people. When it comes to taking photographs, you can't do a forced smile. You can't do a forced facial expression. Because when you do that, it's not believable. I say that to my mom, who does YouTube channel, I'm like, you gotta make it believable. You gotta, you know, really just, you can't do like a, alright, you know, you have to do it so it looks natural. And looking at this, she's doing that so it's natural. Now, obviously, you know, she's had some training with this. This is not her first rodeo. But I love the detail in the pole right here. I think that's such cool, because even though it's, you know, there's some shadows in it, you can still see the detail. You can see the detail up here. But just, there's just so much that I love. I love seeing the red against her skin. That's a very, you know, color contrast to everything. You know, we could have definitely said this would have been a different story if she was wearing like black, or if she was wearing green, or if she was wearing white. You know, it wouldn't have stood out as much as the red does. You know, red is a very distinguished color, and that's why, like, when you think about photography, you think about family portraits and what some of the professional models have done. A good majority of them that I've seen wear something red, whether it be like red lipstick or, you know, something red on them, just because it's a very vibrant color. It makes the person stand out. I mean, look at that. That's such a cool shot. I am wow. I don't know what else to say besides wow. I love the detail on the sword handle. I love the fact that you can see, you know, she's wearing a ring right here. I love the fact that she's, you know, she's kneeling down. You can see the detail in her, even down to the single strand of hair. You can even see it right there in her hair. You can see like where she has parted it and everything. But I also love the fact, again, it goes back to the red. You know, the red makes her stand out so much more. Like, if someone was to come in to like a party or something wearing this, they would be the talk of the party. They would be the talk of the party. You know, I'm sure she was. When she took this photograph, I'm sure she was the talk of the town, or the talk of the scenario. I love the details of the roses. Again, if you can capture roses in the right light, they can just look gorgeous. There's so much I love about it. I love the fact that you can't see her feet, but at the same time you can. You know that she's wearing some boots, but she's also in this dark. She's kneeling on this dark ground. But I love the fact that there's some kind of like sparkles kind of coming from the ground, and it's so well thought out. Obviously, this was done in a studio. You don't ever get to capture these kind of things outside. But I mean, look at that. Excuse me, it is like 12:31 a.m. I'm tired. But I wanted to do this because I was thoroughly impressed with this. I love the fact that you can see the detail in her joints right here. And, going back to the whole detail with the sword. I mean, this is just very well done. You can see the detail in her hand down here. You can see the wrinkles in her skirt. And, you can see the various lines and everything in the rose petals. And one thing that I really like is that in these feathers you can see the various different fine pieces of the feather detail right there. And there's one thing, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Yes, I can. You notice right here, this yarn, well, that's not a yarn, I don't know why I just said yarn. This tie right here. I love the fact that they wanted to make sure that stood out, because there's a lot of amateur photographers. I made this mistake, and I'm sure several other hundreds of others have made this mistake, where this just kind of blended in with everything else. But the photographer, when they were going through and editing this, they wanted to make sure that knot and that tie right there really stood out. And that was a very smart thing to do, because it's something you don't see as much with amateur photography. You can see her belly button. It's and you can see the detail in the various buttons that are on her shirt and on her top, I should say. And then again, going back to the necklace, I mean, it's just so well detailed. There's so much I could do and talk about this. These are the kind of shots that us photographers live for. When it comes to photography, that these kind of shots, they're not easy to get, but if you can master it, if you can capture it just right. And that's why you can't just take I want to do a demonstration of this. If this was my camera, my DSLR or my SLR, whatever you choose to use, you can't just do like one shot and say, okay, we're good. You have to do multiple shots. You have to do the multiple shots, because one key thing that I've learned in photography over the years is that one shot is not like the other. Even if you were to take multiple shots like this of the person in the same situation, something always changes every time you take the shot. Whether it be that they breathe different or they move a little. No one shot is the same as its predecessor or as its photograph after it. But going back to this, I mean, look at that. That's such a cool aesthetic shot. Like, she's the focal point, which I love. I think that's so great. You can see the detail again in her hair, in the flower, in the roses, in her top, and in the necklace. But again, there's that shine glimmer from her lipstick. You can see the light in her eyes. That's one thing that I always tell people, especially like when it comes to photography, is that you gotta see the whites in their eyes. You gotta see the whites. If you don't see the whites, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be a good shot, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I take that back. It will be a good shot but you won't be able to see their eyes as well unless you just really zoom in on the editing and you're able to somehow bring out the white in the eyes, which takes a lot of time and practice because you got to go to like Photoshop, you got to take it into Photoshop and really put on masks and layers and all that jazz. And a lot of photographers don't really want to take that time, which is really frustrating to me because I've seen photography, I've seen professional photos of photographers, and I just remember thinking in my mind, like, I could have taken a lot better shot and it would have been a lot more well edited than this. But I love the fact that she has the rose right next to her, but the fact that she's leaning up against the pole, and the pole really kind of brings her out. I guess it's not a pole, it's a post. The post really brings her out as a person. And I love the fact that you can see all the strands of her hair. Obviously she has long hair, which is it's really pretty hair. This is something that obviously I don't have long hair, but I just love the fact that you can see every strand of her hair, and that was because obviously some photographers would think, oh well, I'm just going to go into Photoshop and I'm going to clone stamp all those out. No, I love the fact that they left that in there so you can see the different. You can see that it was kept there for a reason. I mean, and I love that there's something about this that I really love, and I think it's the fact that she was doing the look away shots. I always call these the majestic shot. I like to call these the majestic shots because you're not looking at the camera, you're looking away at something else. And the way they edited the roses in it makes it really stand out. And again, it's because it's that red, that red color. Red color really makes her as a person stand out, whether it be the roses that are right next to her, or the red that's on her clothing, or even the red that's in her hair right there. There's just something about red, it always attracts the human eye. I've noticed when I've taken photographs of families where, like, if they were wearing red, the photographs always turned out a lot better. I can think about one photograph in particular that I took where it was of a girl she was going to be a senior in high school, and she was wearing a red dress, and the shot looked amazing. Like, when I went to edit it, it didn't really, obviously I enhanced the colors a little, but it didn't need too much editing besides, obviously, taking the noise down and things of that nature. But it's partially because of the red. She had like a light brown hair, and she had, white skin. She had, not white skin, lighter skin, like Yuqi. But I love the fact that he or she, whoever took this photograph, really went to task on this. They wanted all the minute details really just to be involved. You can see the detail on the post. You can see the detail even in the belt that's around her arm. It's a very well done shot. And that, I like that a lot. I think that's so cool. That's something that in photography, we talk about this thing called leading lines. I do this a lot in my landscape photography, and I've tried to do this with portrait photography as well, where you gotta have leading lines. And I love the fact that this does have leading lines, but she's still the focal point. These leading lines they're all leading toward her. In my honest opinion, I always, if you talk to other photographers, they may disagree with that, but that's what makes us all unique. But I love the fact that even though she's in this dark ground, you can still see her boots. You can see the detail of her legs. You can see the detail of the feathers that are on her skirt. Again, the detail on her top. This was a very well done shot. I love this, and I love the fact that even on the post or the archway, you can see all the detail. even on the roses, like some of these things are not the easiest, but like I also, there's one thing I really like about this. I just noticed this. The rose detail is there, but the photographer did not want the roses to take away from her as the focal point. Obviously, the sword with the roses on it, they were fine with enhancing that and making that lighter, but I also like the fact that they put the detail on the roses that were around the archway, but they didn't make them as light as like the ones that were on her sword, because they wanted her to be the focal point of this whole thing. This is a very well done shot. I am thoroughly impressed. I mean, that's not an easy shot to get. Like I call that the model shot, because that's basically what it is. I've had clients do this. Obviously, when I had the clients do this, I'm not going to show those because I was very amateur when I took them. But this, you have to angle the person at a certain point to where you can see them as a person and their figure, but not so like you're not just getting like a backward, like a shot of their back or their butt. You want to be able to get them as a whole, you want to get them as a whole, as a person. And going back to the details of this, you can still see the detail of the sword and the roses on the sword, but again, they made sure the details would be noticeable on this archway. I guess it's either been an archway or a picture frame. Looks like, I guess it's a picture frame, but again, the roses, they're detailed. They are not standing out as much as the roses that are on the sword, because again, she is the focal point. She is the subject of the photo, and I love the fact that when it comes to this kind of stuff, obviously they have fans that are on the sides that will blow the hair. Well, that will blow that. So I cannot talk, obviously, because I'm getting a little tired because it's almost 1 a.m. But they have fans like. Whenever you do these kind of studio shots, you usually have people on the sides that will have like some kind of a fan to get the hair to blow a certain way so you can capture this kind of shot right here. It's very impressive. It's not easily done, and you have to do it just right. And I love the fact that even with her face, with how her face is right here, you can still see the detail of the hair. You can see the detail of her eyebrows. It's a very well done shot, and again, that background, it just makes it just 100% an amazing shot. But honestly, guys, she's very obviously, she's very attractive. You can see that she's very attractive. But you can see that the photographers, when they took these shots, they took their time. You cannot rush photography. I always tell people, you cannot rush this kind of stuff. When it comes to photography or anything like to do with art, you can't rush it. You can't rush learning to play guitar. You can't rush learning to sing. You can't rush learning to be a videographer. You can't not rush anything like this. But going back to this photographer, they took their time. And there's so much about this that I really just think is so cool. I love the lighting on her as a person. You have her, the lighting is just well done on her backside, and just like with the way that it shows off her hair. And if I was to zoom in on this a little bit more, look at that. Like, that's such a cool. Like, you can just see the detail of her hair. You can see the light in her eyes. You can see the detail of her eyelashes. Like, it's such a very well done shot. Like, I am thoroughly impressed with this. And they were. And I just barely noticed this. You can see the detail, the reflection detail in the sword. I think that is really cool. I like that a lot. I think that is something that, if you can capture it, great. But if you can't, don't try to force it. I cannot emphasize that enough, that when it comes to photography, you cannot force it. Do not force something that is not meant to be, especially in photography. I've tried to force things, and they've failed horribly. in photography. But on that note, guys, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you want me to keep doing these kind of series, like where I look at these different K-pop photography, you know, models, and just kind of give my thoughts on it? Like, make sure you tell me in the comments below, because I love this stuff. I love photography. You know, got a lot that I could, you know, expound on and I could talk about. And if you guys want to see any of my shots, make sure you tell me in the comments below. You know, I do a lot more landscape lately than I have been doing portrait, because here in Utah, everybody and their brother tries to be a photographer. So, but on that note, guys, make sure you tell me in the comments, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you like this? Is there other, you know, K-pop artists that you want to see me do, critique the photographs of? Obviously, you know, keep them clean. I don't want to see anything inappropriate. And thankfully, you know, with most K-pop, that's not the case, but you just never know. But make sure you tell me in the comments below. But on that note, I will see you in the next video.